Have you ever met someone someone who just completely fundamentally gets you?
Oh, yeah. That rare, profound connection we are all basically culturally conditioned to search for.
Right. But then instead of riding off into the sunset, the connection actually makes you want to run for the absolute
It
hills.
is a massive paradox, really.
It totally is. I mean,
Yeah.
we crave depth, we write songs about it, we watch movies about it, but when it actually shows up in our lives, it frequently just destroys the relationship.
Which is wild because usually when we talk about building something, like building a house, there's this expectation of predictability.
Yeah, exactly. You pour the concrete, you calculate the load-bearing walls, and, the architect points at the blueprint and guarantees it will hold.
It's a very comforting illusion. I mean,
Uh,
we desperately want the math of human interaction to be that clean, where a good foundation automatically supports whatever beautiful thing you try to build on top of it.
but then you step into the actual world of human connection, and suddenly that blueprint is completely useless.
Completely useless.
We try to build these towering, massive relationships on top of ground we haven't even tested. So, welcome to this deep dive, everyone. I'm your host, and today, along with our resident expert, we are exploring that incredibly precarious structural landscape of how we connect with each other.
Hey everyone, so glad to be here to dig into this with you.
Our mission today is to decode the hidden architecture of human relationships. We are pulling from some really fascinating source material, excerpts from a text called The Gravity of Depth and the Architecture of Readiness.
It's a fantastic read.
It really is. We're going specifically into the intense, often painful friction between emotional depth and emotional readiness. Okay, let's unpack this. The text uses this phrase, gravity connection,
Hmm.
which I interpret as a relationship that actually exerts a physical pull on your life.
Right, like it demands a different orbit than your casual light friendships.
Exactly. So is that what's happening structurally?
Well, you're touching on the exact mechanism, but we need to look at how that pull is actually generated. I mean, we all have light connections, right?
Sure. Like the coworker you chat with about the weather.
Exactly. Or the acquaintance you grab a quick coffee with.
Uh,
Those interactions are pleasant, they're necessary, but they rely entirely on established social scripts.
they don't really ask anything of your core self.
Bingo. A gravity connection, on the other hand, alters the fundamental environment of the interaction. And it usually happens because one person in the dynamic is deeply perceptive and, well, emotionally open.
Right. They don't just passively listen to you.
No, they bring this profound sense of awareness and presence.
They kind of change the weather in the room. They're the ones who notice the micro expressions. Like, you say you're doing fine, but they notice the half-second hesitation before you say it.
And they actually ask you about it instead of politely ignoring it.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is how that specific type of presence alters the entire field of interaction.
Oh.
By noticing those micro expressions, by bypassing the usual conversational scripts, they make everything in the dynamic more visible.
And more real.
Yes, more real. They strip away the surface level posturing just by paying absolute unblinking attention to you. You feel truly perceived, maybe for the first time in a really long time.
Hold on, let me push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Because culturally, we are told that being truly seen is the ultimate goal, right? We're told that finding a soulmate or a best friend who just effortlessly gets it is a purely positive force.
That is the narrative, yeah.
But if we go back to our architectural analogy, let's say my emotional foundation is perfectly fine, but it was built for like a one-story storage shed.
Okay, I follow you.
And then you come along with this beautiful, massive skyscraper of a connection full of meaning and emotional weight. And you just drop it onto my shed foundation.
Ouch.
Right. That foundation isn't going to magically hold it just because the skyscraper is beautiful. It's going to crack under the load.
That is such a great way to visualize it. You're on the right track, but it's not just about the crushing weight, it's about the materials.
What do you mean?
You're essentially trying to weld heavy structural steel to cheap drywall.
Oh, wow.
It's not just that the foundation cracks, it's that the two people are suddenly speaking completely different structural languages. The presence of depth does not automatically manufacture the structural readiness to handle it.
Which brings us to the core conflict the text highlights. So we're looking at a friction between intensity and capacity.
Precisely.
Intensity, I'm assuming, is that undeniable pull, right? Like how alive and meaningful the interaction feels.
Yeah.
But capacity is the structural integrity to actually withstand that pull.
But that's a crucial distinction to make. Intensity happens between two people. It's the spark, the shared energy, the late night conversation where you both just lose track of time.
Best feeling in the world.
It is. Capacity, however, is entirely individual. It's a person's internal psychological ability to remain stable, to stay emotionally regulated and responsive when they're inside that high level of intensity.
And if you're listening to this and you've ever had a friend or a romantic interest suddenly pull away or even ghost you right after an incredibly vulnerable, amazing night together.
Which happens all the time.
All the time. You probably assume they just didn't care. But what we're looking at here completely flips that script. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because we naturally assume intensity breeds intimacy.
But the text points out that when intensity exceeds a person's structural capacity, it doesn't pull them closer.
It actually triggers a withdrawal.
Exactly. It's a massive physiological and psychological overload.
Yeah.
When someone pulls away from a profound connection, the immediate assumption from the deeper individual is a sense of rejection. They think, I showed you who I really am and you didn't like it.
It feels like a personal failure.
It really does. But we have to look at the mechanics of what is actually happening in the nervous system of the person withdrawing. This isn't necessarily a rejection of the other person at all.
So what is it?
It is a desperate response to internal destabilization.
Internal destabilization. Meaning the drywall is actively crumbling and their nervous system is basically sounding the alarm.
Precisely. They suddenly feel overwhelmingly exposed. The emotional load is demanding a level of vulnerability they just don't have the architecture to support yet.
So they feel like they are losing their footing.
Yeah, their nervous system is entering a mild fight-or-flight state because the dynamic is asking way too much of their current internal resources. In these moments, putting physical or emotional distance between themselves and the deep person is a necessary form of self-regulation.
They are stepping back so their nervous system can just return to baseline.
Exactly.
Okay, but if I'm in this situation, if I meet someone, the connection is undeniably meaningful, and we both feel the magic. Why does the person lacking capacity feel threatened instead of just saying, hey, this is amazing, but I'm overwhelmed. Let's just explore this slowly.
That would be the logical response, sure.
Right. So why does their nervous system read depth as an actual threat?
Because engaging more deeply isn't just about feeling good, it carries severe perceived costs. When you enter into a gravity connection, you aren't just looking at the other person.
You're looking at yourself.
You are being forced to look at yourself.
Yeah.
It demands emotional consistency. It requires an ongoing vulnerability that can't just be turned off when it's inconvenient. And most intimidating of all, a perceptive person acts as a high-definition mirror. You cannot easily hide your own flaws, your insecurities, or your unresolved baggage from yourself when someone else is looking right at them and accepting them.
Wow.
It forces you to confront parts of yourself that you haven't yet integrated.
So depth feels like pressure? Because it literally removes your ability to lie to yourself. It's a complete loss of control.
It is a profound loss of control, and it creates a severe misalignment in how the two individuals are experiencing the relationship's timeline.
The timeline. How so?
Well, the deep individual, the one bringing the awareness, operates naturally in this nuanced space. Because they can read the underlying meaning, they often aren't just interacting with the person in front of them right now.
Okay.
They're interacting with the potential of what the connection could become.
Oh, that makes so much sense. They are basically dating or befriending a future timeline.
Yes.
They spot the patterns, they see the emotional intelligence buried into the surface, and they think, I see exactly how amazing this fully built house is going to be.
But the other person isn't looking at a future house. They are rigidly grounded in their current capacity. They are standing in a pile of bricks, feeling completely overwhelmed by the fact that they don't know how to mix the mortar.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. The tension lives entirely in this invisible gap between the soaring potential the deep person sees and the grounded, limited readiness the other person actually possesses.
And the text brings up a really fascinating concept regarding how we manage our day-to-day lives to avoid this exact feeling. It calls it partial visibility.
Yes, partial visibility.
Most of us go through life as the meticulous editors of our own image. Like we control exactly what our coworkers see, we curate what our casual friends see, we only show the good angles.
Right.
But being fully perceived by someone with profound depth strips away that editorial control completely. Even if they are looking at you with total love and zero judgment, you are no longer the one deciding what gets seen.
And if your internal architecture isn't secure, losing that editorial control is absolutely terrifying. You are naked in the spotlight.
Right. And the text notes a highly counterintuitive reaction to this specific discomfort. When people feel this intense loss of control, they don't always just quietly back away or ghost you.
No, they don't.
Sometimes they react with sudden, seemingly irrational irritation, or even outright anger, which, if you're the person offering love and understanding, feels like a massive slap in the face.
It is deeply confusing for the deep individual. They are offering a safe harbor and they are met with sudden hostility. But if we look at the mechanics of human behavior, anger in this specific context is rarely about malice.
What is it about then?
It functions as a highly efficient defense mechanism. Anger is the fastest, most effective tool a human being has to create immediate psychological distance.
Because if I'm angry at you, a wall instantly goes up.
Exactly. The connection is severed for a moment, the overwhelming emotional pressure drops, and my sense of autonomy and control is completely restored.
Wow.
It's a clumsy, painful way of hitting the emergency brake on a train that feels like it's moving way too fast. It immediately stops the deep person from perceiving them because now the deep person is just dealing with the conflict.
That is such a vital reframing. It's tragic to experience, but logically it makes total sense. You're just trying to be a good friend and they bite your head off just to get some breathing room.
Exactly.
But this creates a really painful paradox, right? Because this is what drives the deep person completely crazy. They see this withdrawal or they experience this sudden irritation and they naturally try to logic their way through it.
Which is a trap.
It is. They think, well, maybe they're just too busy at work right now to invest in a friendship. But then they watch that same person spend 5 hours on a Friday night grabbing drinks with a surface-level acquaintance. It feels like a massive intentional insult.
It feels like a total rejection of their worth. But this pivots us to a really crucial distinction the source makes, and it's absolutely essential for understanding this dynamic. Time and availability are not the same thing.
Let's break that down because I think a lot of listeners really confuse the two. You can have an incredibly open calendar, but zero actual availability.
Correct.
Yeah.
A person might have abundant free time on evenings and weekends. They might have hours to kill.
Right.
But that same person can have absolutely zero emotional or psychological availability to process a deep connection. Because psychological availability requires internal space. It requires the energy to self-reflect and engage with complexity.
Clock hours mean nothing if the internal battery is dead. And so when they choose to go to the bar with the casual acquaintance, instead of having dinner with a deep friend, it's not an insult. It's a mechanism for self-soothing.
It is a return to a regulated state. Because they lack internal availability, they will instinctively choose activities and relationship dynamics that maintain their current comfortable baseline.
They actively gravitate toward familiarity over transformation.
Yes. The casual acquaintance at the bar isn't going to inadvertently challenge their worldview or hold up a mirror to their unresolved trauma. It's safe. It's easy. It requires zero structural load.
The heartbreak really sets in when you realize how this looks from the outside. The deeper individual watches this happen, and they misinterpret the entire situation as a lack of effort.
They think, you just don't care enough about me to try.
When in reality, it isn't about effort at all. It simply reflects a strict structural limit on what that person is capable of engaging with at that exact moment in their life.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this fundamental misunderstanding is the source of immense unnecessary suffering.
On both sides.
Yes, on both sides. The deep person walks away feeling unvalued, assuming they just weren't enough to keep the other person's attention. Meanwhile, the person lacking capacity feels pressured, inadequate, and fundamentally misunderstood.
So they retreat even further into their comfort zone out of pure self-preservation.
Precisely. Neither person is acting out of malice, yet the structural incompatibility causes a total collapse of the relationship.
So this brings up the ultimate so what question. If you have this incredible gravity-heavy connection with someone, and the foundation cracks, the emergency brake gets pulled, and the whole thing breaks down because of this misalignment,
Yeah.
is it all just a waste of time? Does all that shared energy and profound meaning just vanish into thin air?
Not at all. And this is where the source material offers a highly redemptive perspective, I think. The impact of a profound connection does not disappear just because the logistics of the relationship failed.
Okay.
It leaves what the text calls an imprint.
An imprint, like a permanent alteration of the blueprint.
Yes. The individual who lacked the capacity, the one who pulled away, now carries an entirely new psychological reference point.
Oh, interesting.
They have encountered a level of connection, a depth of being seen and understood that is vastly more intense than anything they previously knew. You can't unexperience that kind of resonance.
No, you really can't.
Their internal baseline for what is possible between two human beings has been fundamentally altered.
It's like living your whole life in a house where you thought the walls were fixed and finite.
Okay, I like this.
And then someone comes along and shows you a hidden door to an entire second wing of the house that you never even knew existed.
Wow, yeah.
Even if you immediately lock that door because the new wing is too drafty or scary to heat, you can never walk down your hallway the same way again. You know the door is there.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Moving forward, even if they continue to choose more comfortable, familiar, surface-level dynamics, future interactions will be unconsciously compared to that intense experience.
There will always be a lingering awareness that something deeper is out there.
The text points out that the connection was highly formative, even if it wasn't continuous. It shaped their internal architecture, even if the building couldn't be sustained at the time.
So what does this all mean? Especially for the person who naturally brings that depth into the world. Because if I'm that deeply perceptive person listening to this, I might be thinking, great, so my depth is essentially a wrecking ball that just destroys people's foundations. I should just learn to be shallow so I don't scare people away.
And that would be a tragic misinterpretation of the text. The lesson for the individual bringing the depth is crucial here. The depth itself is never the problem.
Okay, that's a relief.
The issue is purely about the mechanics of its delivery. It's about the timing of its expression.
Timing. So it's not about changing who you are or suppressing your authenticity. It's about when and how you reveal it.
Exactly. When depth is introduced completely and immediately, when you demand that the other person matches your profound level of awareness on day one, it completely surpasses their ability to integrate it.
It's basically an emotional ambush.
It really is. But when depth is introduced gradually, it actually allows the other person's internal capacity to expand alongside it. You give their nervous system time to realize that this depth is safe, not threatening.
So you have to become an emotional architect. You don't hide the blueprints for the skyscraper, but you don't demand they build it overnight either.
Right.
You start exactly where the person currently is, and you consciously, carefully lay the groundwork, building a bridge toward what they are capable of becoming. You have to intentionally allow space for lightness, for ease, for the casual stuff.
It's about letting the connection breathe. A relationship can still be profoundly meaningful while also having moments of absolute simplicity. It doesn't have to be a high-stakes emotional excavation every single time you speak.
That is such a good point. And ultimately, the presence of a deep connection does not obligate mutual participation. Just because the magic is undeniably there doesn't mean the readiness is there.
Exactly.
What a deep connection actually does is act as a mirror.
A mirror that forces both people to look at reality. Through this friction, one person learns the harsh, unavoidable limits of their current emotional capacity.
And the deep individual learns the vital, delicate importance of timing, pacing, and restraint.
It is a revelation of alignment or misalignment. And in that revelation, both individuals are forever changed by the encounter, whether they end up staying together or not.
That is so powerful.
This raises an important question.
It really does. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. We've talked about how these intense connections leave a permanent imprint on the person who wasn't ready, permanently altering their baseline. So think about your own life, and let's go back to that hidden door in the hallway. If a profound connection from your past left a new imprint on you, but you walked away because your foundation simply couldn't handle the load at the time, look honestly at who you spend your time with today. Are you currently surrounding yourself with comfortable and familiar connections? Not because they truly satisfy you, but simply because you are still waiting to build the internal architecture required to hold the depth you now know exists. Something to think about the next time you feel a little too comfortable. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the blueprints and keep learning.